Picture the first fire. Go on, you've already got a version of it in your head. Some hunched over caveman, middle of the night, lightning splits a tree right down the middle, and there's the flame. And this one lucky genius reaches a hand out toward it and goes, "Oh, warm." That's the story pretty much all of us are carrying around. One person, one spark, one good night. And it's wrong in just about every way a little story can be wrong. Because fire wasn't discovered. Not like that. Nobody tripped over it one afternoon and changed the whole world by dinner. It took hundreds of thousands of years. It happened in separate stages. And the very first hand to ever tend a flame on purpose wasn't even human. Not human like you and me. Our species didn't exist yet. We showed up late to our own campfire. So who lit the first fire? That's the whole question. And the honest answer takes that little cartoon flickering in your head and pulls it apart, piece by piece. Hi, I'm Nell. Let's look closer. Start with the word everybody reaches for. Discovered. We discovered fire. But you discover a thing that was hidden. Fire was never hidden. It fell out of the sky every storm season. It tore across the grasslands. It was about the most ordinary thing in that world. There was nothing to go find. Finding fire was never the hard part. Fear was. Every animal alive runs from it. That's one of the oldest instincts there is. So the real story here was never about a spark at all. It's about the slow, strange business of one animal learning to walk toward the exact thing everything else runs from. And that took a while. A lot longer than a while usually means. The creature that first tamed a fire and the creature that first made one from cold rock were not the same species, and neither one of them was us. Hold on, then where do we even come into this? No. We don't. Really, not at the start. We inherited it. A habit older than our entire species, handed down to us already lit. And it got handed down in 3 stages. Use it, keep it, make it, with hundreds of thousands of years between each one. That's the road we're about to walk. So, stage 1, use it. And to stand at the oldest trace of it we've got, we go to a cave in South Africa called Wonderwerk. In 2012, a team led by a researcher named Francesc Berna is working down through the floor of that cave, layer by patient layer, and deep in one of the old ones, they hit ash, burned scraps of bone, plant matter cooked down to almost nothing. Now, ash by itself doesn't prove much. A wildfire can blow in through a cave mouth and leave a mess like that. But this ash was sitting about 30 meters back, deep inside, way past anywhere a gust of burning grass could ever reach, in a spot with no natural way for a flame to start on its own. Somebody brought that fire in there, somebody fed it and sat beside it. And the layer it's resting in is 1 million years old. Hold on, 1 million? Yeah, 1 million years. And that's the first jolt of this whole thing, because 1 million years ago, there was no us. Homo sapiens wouldn't turn up for another 700,000 years. The hands warming themselves at that fire belonged to an older human, Homo erectus. Heavier brow, smaller skull, but standing upright same as you, and already so at home with a flame that they carried it into the dark. So the first firekeeper we can point to isn't some ancestor you'd recognize in a mirror. It's someone else entirely. And they'd already cracked the easy part, which leaves the harder one. How do you go from grabbing a fire you happen to find to keeping one that never dies? Stage 2. Keep it. And for this one, we jump forward a good chunk of time to the edge of an old lake in what's now northern Israel. The site's got a mouthful of a name, Geshar Banat Yaakov. For years, the person digging into it was Naama Goraninbar, and what she pulled out wasn't a fireplace, it was fireplaces. Clusters of burned flint, little scorched patches, turning up again and again all the way down through the site, layer after layer after layer. And that's the whole tell. One hearth could be a fluke, a lightning fire they used once and moved on. But the same spots burned over and over, top to bottom, through the entire stretch of time people lived there. That isn't luck. That's a habit. These people weren't waiting on the sky to hand them a flame anymore. They had one whenever they wanted it, wherever they set up. And all of that is 790,000 years old. They were even fussy about the firewood, burned olive, wild grape, wild barley, all turned up in the ash. A menu. Someone crouched over a fire the better part of 1,000,000 years ago, going, "No, not that branch. This one." So that's the jump from stage 1. These people weren't borrowing fire off the lightning any longer. They were running it. Carrying a flame across whole generations, tending it so steadily, the dirt itself still remembers. But keeping a fire and making one from nothing, those are two completely different animals. And stage 3 is where this gets strange. Stage 3. Make it. This is the real jump, the one that flips the whole thing over. Look at what stages 1 and 2 secretly share. In both of them, the fire has to come from somewhere else first. Lightning? A wildfire. A flame you carried in from the last camp. You're not a maker yet, you're a guardian. And if that flame ever dies on your watch, one hard rain, one bad night, you're cold and you're stuck, sitting there waiting on the sky to strike again. Making fire cuts that cord. No storm needed. Cold stone, dry wood, 2 hands, and you pull a flame out of nothing. So when did we finally manage that? This is the strange part, because the firm answer is shockingly late. The oldest solid proof of people actually making fire comes from Neanderthal sites up in northern France. Strikolites. Lumps of iron pyrite you smack against flint to throw a spark. And they're only about 50,000 years old. We'd been keeping fire alive for nearly 1,000,000 years. And the oldest hard evidence that we could actually start one is 50,000 years old. Nearly 1,000,000 years of guarding a flame nobody knew how to relight. That's a staggering gap. So staggering that a lot of researchers think it simply can't be right. And in 2025, a dig in England went hunting to prove exactly that. So, England, 2025. A site called Barnum out in Suffolk. A team works back through it and finds 2 things lying together. Signs of burning so hot, so controlled, it's genuinely hard to pin on a wildfire, and little fragments of iron pyrite, the spark rock. The exact stuff those Neanderthal strikolites were made from, except this pyrite doesn't occur naturally anywhere near Barnum. Somebody carried it in. On purpose. And the layer it's in? 400,000 years old. If they've got it right, that yanks the invention of fire making back 350,000 years in a single swing. Which is a huge if. It's one site, one fresh study, and plenty of researchers aren't sold. Pyrite can end up in odd places for dull reasons, and one dig doesn't get to rewrite the whole timeline by itself. So file it under, maybe. Allowed. Fascinating, maybe. But step back from that argument for a second, because whether making fire is 50,000 years old or 400,000, the big shape of the story doesn't budge. Nobody discovered fire. That was never the thing that happened. Fire got inherited, handed from palm to palm, camp to camp, over a stretch of time so long the humans at the start of the chain and the humans at the end aren't even the same species. Homo erectus used it. People after them kept it burning for hundreds of thousands of years. And only near the very end, maybe, did somebody learn to spin one up from nothing? We didn't find fire. It was pressed into our hands, already lit, and we spent 1,000,000 years slowly working out what it was for. Okay, that's the heart of it. The whole 3-step climb, start to finish, feels like a clean spot to take a breath. If you've got a little longer, though, Act 2 is where the stranger questions live, like whether fire is the actual reason your brain is the size it is right now. So stick around for that one. And if you're liking this so far, a like and a subscribe honestly helps the channel more than you'd think. Okay, let's keep going. So here's the question that turns this whole thing from a history lesson into something a lot more personal. What did all that fire actually do to us? The easy answer is warmth and safety and light in the dark. All true. Yeah. But there's a scientist who thinks fire did something far sneakier than that. His name's Richard Wrangham, and in 2009 he wrote a book with a bold title, Catching Fire, and an even bolder idea inside it. He thinks fire got in us, reached in and rebuilt the animal from the inside. The idea is called the cooking hypothesis, and it starts with a dead plain fact about food. Raw food is expensive. Your body has to burn a small fortune of its own energy just to break it down. All that chewing, all that slow work in the gut, just to claw back the calories trapped inside it. Cooking does that job for you, outside the body, before you've taken a single bite. Heat shreds the tough stuff, cracks open the starches, unwinds the proteins. So by the time the food reaches your mouth, most of the hard part is already finished. And the gap there is not small. Take an egg, eat it raw, and your body can maybe use 50-60% of what's in it. Cook it, and that climbs to around 90. So cooking is really just pre-digestion, a second stomach that sits outside your body and runs on firewood. Now let that repeat. Year after year, generation after generation, fire feeding you thousands of calories you never had to fight for. Wrangham's claim is that this surplus didn't just keep Homo erectus fed. It paid for something huge. And that's where the idea gets genuinely strange. Here's where it gets strange. Your brain is a glutton. Gram for gram, it's one of the hungriest things you own, burning energy while you sleep, while you sit here doing nothing. A brain that big is a luxury item, and luxury has to get paid for, somehow. In 1995, two researchers, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, worked out how the bill got covered. They called it the expensive tissue hypothesis, and the core of it is dead simple. Your body runs on a budget. It can only burn so much energy in a day, and a couple of your organs are brutally costly to keep running. Your brain and your gut, both of them eat a fortune. So if you want to grow one of those greedy organs bigger, you have to shrink the other one to free up the money, robbing one pocket to fill the other inside your own body. And here's the fingerprint that they were right. Look at your own gut. Next to other primates your size, apes built roughly like you, your digestive system is only about 60% as big as it should be. It's been trimmed down, shrunk. That missing 40% of gut is about what your oversized brain is running on instead. But hang on, soft food isn't rare. All kinds of animals eat mush. So why is it only us walking around with this huge overfed head? Because nothing else softens its food the way fire does. Cooking doesn't just mash a meal, takes it apart chemically before you've even swallowed. That's the crack in the door. A shrunken goat can't survive on raw leaves and raw meat, but hand it food the fire already half broke down, and suddenly it can get by. The fire shrank the stomach. The shrunk stomach paid for the brain. Now, okay, and I can't skip this part, because it's the honest one. Wrangham's idea makes a lot of sense, but it might also be wrong, or at least wrong about the timing. Here's the snag. For cooking to have built the Homo erectus brain, erectus needed fire pretty far back, around 1.8 million years ago, right when that bigger brain first starts showing up. But remember Wonderwerk? Our best solid evidence for controlled fire only reaches back about 1 million years. That leaves a hole, the better part of 800,000 years wide, sitting right in the middle of the theory. And there's a second catch. Some researchers think the brain started swelling before anyone cooked a thing, fed not by fire, but by a switch to eating more meat, which is loaded with calories all on its own. So did cooking build our brain, or just push a cart that something else had already set rolling? The truest answer science has right now is we don't fully know yet. And honestly, that unfinished edge is part of what makes it worth sitting with. But step back one last time, all the way back to where we started, because even with that question wide open, the shape of the answer is rock solid. Nobody lit the first fire. Not the way you pictured it at the top. No lone caveman, no lightning bolt flash of genius, no single night the world tipped over. Fire was already here, roaring across the planet for hundreds of millions of years. And the entire human story is just us, painfully slowly, learning to stop running from it, to hold it, to carry it through the dark, and finally, right near the end, to strike it out of nothing. We didn't discover fire. We were handed it, passed down a chain of different humans so long that the ones who lit the first link were gone hundreds of thousands of years before our species ever showed up. We came late to our own campfire, and we've been sitting at it ever since. And that's the strange little thing to carry out the door. That same fire is still working right now. The reason you can hold this whole tangle of numbers in your head at once, follow one thread this far without dropping it, is a brain a campfire paid for. 1 million years before you were born. You're still living off that flame. Okay, that's the whole story. So let me hand you the thing I keep turning over. If it wasn't one person and one spark, does who discovered fire even have an answer anymore? Tell me down in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more of these, I never knew that moments, a comment, a like, a subscribe, any of it genuinely keeps these going. And since this whole channel runs on me not making stuff up, all my sources are sitting in the description if you feel like digging through them yourself. That's it from me. See you on the next one.